before we begin tonight's events, I want to give a special thanks to our sponsors who made this event possible. First of all, Biplan Global. Biplan Global, if you can raise your hand here. Hi, thank you so much to Biplan Global. Biplan Global is a privately owned company here in Phnom Penh, and they focus on a variety of IT projects, activities like IT and telecom consulting, technical support, and security and evaluation. So thank you very much for being a silver sponsor tonight. I also like to thank Cambodia Investment Management as well for being a sponsor. Cambodia Investment Management is a licensed tax agent. They provide accounting, payroll, corporate finance, human resources, work permits, visas, everything. Thank you very much, Cambodian Investment Management, for this. After tonight's panel discussion, and I see right now you're already enjoying your red wine and white wine, thank you very much to Hung Hiep Group and E&J Gallo Winery. Hung Hiep has become a fast-leading distribution company, bringing fast-moving consumer goods here to Cambodia. And E&J Gallo Winery is the largest family-owned winery in the United States. Thank you very much for that. And the last one, I'd like to thank the Cambodian Association of Finance and Technology for your support as well. So to begin our program tonight, I'd like to invite Mr. Anthony Galliano, AmCham President, to deliver his remarks. Anthony.
Dear His Excellency Chea Vandeth, Minister, Ministry of Posts and Telecommunications, Lieutenant General Chea Peou, Director of Anti-Cybercrime Department, Ministry of Interior, His Excellency Ainsly Jong, Goodwill Ambassador and CEO Solutions for Asia, His Excellency Pili Wang, Governor of the Board of AmCham, Mr. Kelvin Chin, Vice President, Cybersecurity, Honeywell Asia Pacific, Mr. Can Yang, Director, Innovation Solution, Alibaba Cloud, Ms. Vorleak Chhim, Vice President, Head of Data Protection, ACLEDA Bank, government officials, AmCham members, and AmCham friends in attendance. Welcome tonight. I appreciate your attendance. I want to thank you for attending this event, which this evening will focus on cybersecurity, data protection, and securing your digital future. AmCham has assembled the most experienced professionals and officials in the market to share their knowledge, experience, and insights. And we could all look forward to an exceptionally informative and interesting evening, as well as a delightful dinner hosted by Raffles Hotel. There has been quite a bit of news in the media about hacks. It's difficult to comprehend the scale of the impact of this and all the news bites we see and hear. In 2021, there were several notable hacks, and they have raised alarms and caused deep concerns that cyber attacks are increasingly becoming weaponized. To note a few, at the end of 2020 and into 2021, the SolarWinds hack was discovered, one of the biggest cybersecurity breaches of the 21st century. The hack is unprecedented, one of the largest, if not the largest, ever of its kind recorded. The SolarWinds hack was a major event, not because a single company was breached, but because it triggered a much larger supply chain incident that affected thousands of organizations, including the United States government. The SolarWinds hack was a breach that involved SolarWinds Orion system, which involved more than 30,000 public and private organizations, including local, state, and federal agencies, which use the Orion network management system to manage their IT resources. They were all impacted. Also in 2021, a hacking group found vulnerabilities in Microsoft Exchange that gave them access to email accounts of at least 30,000 organizations in the United States and 250,000 globally. In April, ransomware as a service gang, REvil, hit Apple supplier Quanta with a $50 million ransom attack. IBM X-Force estimates that REvil made at least $123 million in profits in 2020. and stole around 20.6 terabytes of data. According to the official cybercrime report published by Cybersecurity Ventures, cybercrime cost the world $6 trillion in 2021 and will likely cost the world $10.5 trillion in 2022. In May, DarkSide breached US-based Colonial Pipeline systems and shut down a major fuel supply pipeline for the United States East Coast. Colonial Pipeline CEO ultimately authorized a $4.4 million ransom payment to restore the systems. The hack that took down the largest fuel pipeline in the United States and led to shortages of fuel across the East Coast was the result of a single compromised password. The Colonial Pipeline breach is significant because it moves cybercrime closer to industrial targets and critical infrastructure attacks. There were so many more significant cybercrime attacks in 2021, the trend increasing, having a more substantial impact and becoming more weaponized. No one is safe from the threat of cyber attacks, which includes malware, denial of service, password attacks, phishing, man-in-the-middle, and drive-by attacks. We are living in an increasingly digital era, and we are all using tech devices, and therefore we are highly likely to be exposed to cyber attacks and need to be protected. And that's where the importance and criticality of cybersecurity awareness comes. Cybersecurity awareness is knowing and doing something to protect information assets. It means understanding what cyber threats are, the potential impact a cyber attack will have, and the steps required to reduce risk and prevent cybercrime from infiltrating our online workplace, platform, and lives. This evening, I am confident that we all will be better educated on the workings of cybercrime and how we can protect ourselves, and we have a superb group of speakers, panelists, and experts to get us there. In closing, a few words on the continuing success of the American Chamber of Commerce in Cambodia. We have surpassed 200 members in April and continue to be the fastest and most active growing chamber. The AmCham Channel was launched in February and produces educational and informative market content and is here tonight to record this event. The advocacy committees power ahead and soon will be publishing data on concerns and issues they are working on. Networking events have experienced record sequential attendance. AmCham successfully donated US $10,000 to demine 2 villages in Prai Vang and will commemorate this event next month in Prai Vang, which is now a mine-free village. I share the board's commitment and mandate to recognize and serve the member as a customer. We strive to enrich the member experience and to be consistently adding value to our members. Please enjoy the evening and thank you for attending.
So now I'd like to invite our guest speaker, Excellency Minister Chea Vandeth, the Minister of the Ministry of Posts and Telecommunications, to give his opening remarks. Minister.
Mr. Anthony Galliano, President of American Chamber of Commerce in Cambodia. Excellency, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. I hope everyone had a wonderful Khmer New Year celebration. I'm delighted to deliver the keynote remarks today at the Cybersecurity 4.0 event hosted by AmCham Cambodia. I'm so glad to see participants from the tech community, telecom operators, law firms, financial services, as well as embassy representatives. The discussion this evening will focus on our collective digital future and how we can all come together to safeguard our cyberspace. The internet has become part of our daily life. From our mobile phone, laptops, and cars, we can seamlessly order food, purchase tickets, conduct business, video conference, watch movies, and listen to music. Social media platforms such as Facebook, Telegram, Instagram, and Twitter, to name a few, have led many of us to a level of comfort in which we unknowingly share our personal information. For government agencies to serve citizens and business to serve customers, having a presence in cyberspace is now a must. The COVID-19 pandemic has disrupted the workplace, promoting most organizations to adopt a work from home flexibility. Companies that could not make the shift or lack a presence on internet would suffer disruptions to their daily operations and miss out on potential business opportunities. As a government, business and individuals increase their presence on internet, so does the risk of cyber attack. It's without a doubt that our society is becoming increasingly dependent on technology. Because of this trend, protecting sensitive information has become crucial for individuals, small businesses, multinational companies, and government agencies. Today, customers are entrusting that the company or government agencies are taking necessary steps to ensure their data is protected. As such, governments that require sensitive personal data must be equipped with the skill and tools to safeguard their data. On the surface, antivirus software, endpoint security solutions, and firewall can no longer be relied on as the sole deterrent. In fact, cyber criminals are getting more innovative, and their strategies have become more sophisticated as they have access to a vast area of technologies to aid their criminal activities. AI and machine learning, among a number of emerging technologies, are now part of the cyber criminal arsenal. Cyber threats can impact any level of our organizations. Therefore, organizations must educate their staff on simple social engineering schemes such as phishing and malware. A comprehensive cybersecurity guideline and technology framework are paramount in defending against sophisticated cybersecurity attacks like ransomware attack or malware attacks. As a business shifting toward digitalizations, online risk can quickly threaten traditional approach to data security. Governments and organizations must be more proactive and innovative in facing these challenges. The economic opportunity and growth of nations are dependent on digital world. Similarly, the digital economy and commerce expansions will face challenges with cyber risk and threat for countries going forward. In doing our part, the Cambodian government has prioritized critical infrastructures that support national capability, such as energy, telecommunications, financial system, transportation, land records, law enforcement, security, aviation, and other public essential service and utility. To keep up with this fast-moving technology phase, we are drafting the cybersecurity, cybercrime, and personal data protection laws. These regulatory tools are essential in safeguarding the marketplace and building confidence in the nations. Moreover, as Cambodia pivots to be a key player in Asia's fast-growing economy, these laws are needed more than ever. So that we can do now to ensure a safe cyberspace for everyone, let me leave behind with the following suggestions. One vulnerability to cyber attacks can be attributed to negligence. All businesses, regardless of size, should ensure that all employees possess basic cybersecurity knowledge. Regular training should be conducted to cement the importance of cybersecurity. 2. Although we cannot eliminate the risk of cyber attacks, we must recognize that one's exposure to cyber attack increases as our digital footprint expands. 3. To stay competitive, security automations, scanning, and assessment need to increase over time to allow safety effort to match innovations. Building and maintaining a solid security program will rely on a company's ability to hire skilled experts and establish effectiveness process to keep their technology up to date. And lastly, increasing digital capability of Cambodia is a key to ensuring we can all actively participate in online activities. All jobs require certain level of digital skill. New and emerging technologies also increasingly need more advanced cybersecurity capability across sectors. To address this need require high quality, relevant education and training, as well as strong partnerships between government organizations and academic institutions. In closing, I would like to express my sincere thanks to AmCham Cambodia for putting together this evening event, highlighting the importance of cybersecurity. Thank you for our panelists who will be sharing their valuable insight. Regulatory system alone will not eliminate the risk of cyber attacks. Cybersecurity begins with all of us. All stakeholders must be vigilant and continue to learn and innovate in order to build a resilient cybersecurity ecosystem. I look forward to the fruitful discussion that will ensue. Thank you.
I'd like to invite our guest panelists to join them as well on stage. Okay, thank you very much for that. So now we'll start our great panel discussion. We have some really excellent speakers today. So I'm going to turn it over to our moderator, His Excellency Philly Wong, who's been a long-time AmCham board member. He's also an advisor to the Ministry of Interior and CEO of many companies, including Honeywell Cambodia. So Philly, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Travis. So good evening. It is my privilege to moderate this international panel of esteemed speakers. My name is Philly Wong. I'm on the board of AmCham for 12 years now. I returned from China and France 20 years ago as a country manager of Microsoft. At that time, the smartphone don't even exist yet. In 2009, as the president of the French Chamber, I founded ICT Federation. And as you can imagine, the industry was still nascent and its development has both challenges and opportunities. In my 20 plus years in Cambodia, I have had the pleasure of witnessing the evolution of the kingdom's economy and recently, notably, its digital economy and the opportunity it presents to both domestic and international players. If anything, the pandemic has proven technology adoption to be more critical than ever. E-commerce has undergone exponential growth. Digital assets have become increasingly more valuable, with the exposure to cybersecurity risk now unavoidable and at any and all levels. So it is with this in mind that we prepared this panel of specialized experts to share with you their respective experience. As a start, please let me invite all the speakers to introduce themselves, starting by Lieutenant General Chea Peou.
Yeah, thank you for the inviting me for today as a panelist, and it's the first time for the Cambodian National Police. And as you're aware, that's why we wear a uniform, because it's easy for all of you, even the news or old, recognize us and what we are and what we are doing. So I'm Lieutenant General Chea Peou from the Ministry of Interior and from the Cambodian National Police. I'm one of the director of the anti-cybercrime, which is established in 2015. I'm the first one who led this organization, and I also brought two of my officers who in charge of the investigation agency and one of the R&D. He also to support all kind of the crime, all kind of the hacking, all kind of the software developed. So I'm delighted to be here, and will be proceed according to the agenda. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Ainsly. I am the Goodwill Ambassador to Cambodia on the CCC. That is essentially within the Ministry of Interior as well. My role has been at the start in protecting brands that were coming into Cambodia and assuring companies that Cambodia was ready for business. I'm happy to sit beside the General because it reminds me of my many years initially as a policeman as well as an investigator for many, many years throughout my career. I'm also the Executive Director of SA Solutions for Asia. We focus on one of the areas which I want to speak of today, the area of how do you protect yourself. I think the Minister and in fact Anthony has also shared some of the key areas already. So I hope to be able to add to that discussion and about the why do you need to do vulnerability assessments, why do you need to do penetration testings, and how do you know whether you've been hacked. So that's an area that I hope to be able to share a little bit on.
Good evening, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kelvin. I lead the industrial cybersecurity business across Asia Pacific and Japan for Honeywell Connected Enterprise. So I've been in IT security since 1993, and I think you can see the evolution of IT security calling itself cybersecurity. And I think the evolution is moving very, very fast towards 5G and mobile first. So looking forward to the question and answers and discussing further. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, and thanks American Chamber of Commerce for inviting me to be here. I'm very honored to be with the panelists and with the General to have the opportunity to discuss cybersecurity. And my name is Yang Kan. I'm from Alibaba Cloud. So I have been with the company for the last 4 years, focusing on the digital innovation, acting as a consultant to work with retail companies, logistics companies, fintech, and so on, to help them design their digital transformation roadmap and then solving various challenges, including cybersecurity. And then before I joined Alibaba Cloud, I was the director of data management for various companies, and then also trying to solve the problem of how to keep data secure and how to manage internally with data leaking problems and PDPA problems and so on. So thank you very much.
So good evening. Thanks for having me. My name is Vorleak Chhim. I'm VP and Head of Data Protection Department in ACLEDA Bank Plc. I've been in the cybersecurity manager role around 9 years, and which cover on the security strategic plan, security operational function, security compliance and risk control, and last but not least, I've been in the data protection and privacy around just in last 3 years, which cover on the how to process personal data in the bank to comply with the data protection and privacy law. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll start the panel discussion. Ms. Vorleak, I have some question for you. So in the banking sector, what is considered as the most common risk for its client, and what are the impacts?
Yes, thanks for the question, and it is very essential. As we can see that in digital age, so the world's most valuable resource now is no more oil, but it is data. And we can see that data, especially like we call PII, is the most valuable asset for the organization, not only for the bank. So that is why privacy or personal data management is become the most concern and the hot topic that we have to take care of. So I would say that the most common risk for the bank or any kind of organization, it should be the risk of identity theft. Yeah.
So where do you see the risk coming from?
As observed and as experienced, we can see that the risk come from the two main factors that I can see. It can come from insider threat and outsider threat. So for insider threat, mostly it comes from people. People is the high risk for any kind of organization because one, we already have technology, we already have security solution, but what happens if the people does not aware the information security knowledge? So sometimes because of the employee themselves, they careless, they unintentionally leak the information, or sometimes they intentionally to steal the information because of dissatisfied with the boss or with the manager, for example. And for outside the threat, it could happen from because of the company is lack of security control implementation, like next generation firewall, like DLP, data loss prevention, WAF, web application firewall, or there is no properly managed access control management, and it also can be because of there is no proper data protection or privacy in place. Yeah, thank you.
So let's say if someone is like malintentioned and want to steal someone's identity, what kind of technique do they use, and how do we protect ourselves?
The most common technique we would say is social engineering attack. That is very popular, and it happens in every picture, like phishing, smishing, or wishing. That is very popular. That they can hack, they can get the information from individual who like not verify or no be careful with the information provided. And one more thing, it also can happen because man in the middle attack, that they missing in the middle of the network because of unsecure network, so that the hacker or criminal can jump in the middle and hack the data. Yes.
So how can a user of or the bank know that some identity got stolen?
Yes, but in general, most individuals, they don't aware until they got alert from the bank to pay the bill, or until sometimes they got call from the police, oh, you commit a crime, for example. So, however, there is significant sign that individuals should should notice something like if you got the alert from the credit card that to pay the charge, which you do not make it, or sometimes you see the unknown statement, unknown transaction in your account statement that do not make it from you, by you, or sometimes you get the bill to pay the health insurance, which you do not make it as well. Or even sometimes there is a notify that there is data breach in the company, which you are the customer of that company. Yeah.
So let's say if I got my identity stolen, what are the remedies? What should I do?
If you just you notify that you have, like above, as I mentioned, you have to follow significant steps to protect yourself. Like first, please immediately change your password or credential detail to make sure that the criminal or the hacker cannot access anymore. Second, please call to the bank or credit card company in order to block or to freeze your account. Third, please keep follow up your transaction, whether the transaction is still continue taking withdraw your money from your account or not. And lastly, and the most important, please notify and contact to local law enforcement in order to assisting. Like in Cambodia, please contact to Ministry of Interior for assisting and to make you safe from the criminal. Yes.
And could you share some good practice to avoid that kind of risk?
So refer to individual or to organization?
For individuals.
Okay.
And then later organization,
Okay.
since you mentioned about it.
Yeah. In order to prevent yourself from the identity theft, for individual, please you study yourself to know the tip how to avoid from phishing attack. What you're going to do, please do not share your personal information if you got it from unknown source. Please do not share your personal information if you got a call and immediately request. And one more thing, please do not oversharing your personal information on the digital platform, especially on social networking. And one more, please take security as a daily routine by using cyber hygiene to protect yourself, because please make it as your daily routine, like you brush your teeth, you make it daily, not wait until your teeth hurt and then you go to see dentist. So cyber hygiene is you have to practice in all the digital platform. Something like use password complexity, like use two-factor authentication, use up-to-date antivirus software, and also try to use VPN if possible and use secure Wi-Fi. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. I think tonight the guests, they know how to secure their money at the bank, at least.
Yeah, it is very important now because now we on digital.
So next, maybe I ask Mr. Ainsly some questions. So with the rapid move towards digitalization, the demand for cloud computing and cloud-based solutions are reaping benefits for businesses that are early cloud adopters, as they were able to expand, scale, and thrive. At the same time, we have seen the digitalization bring with it a new set of challenges that businesses need to address urgently. So can you explain this relationship between cloud and cybersecurity, and thereafter how enterprises can secure their endpoints and servers? How to know if an enterprise network has been compromised? Sorry, it's very complex.
Thank you, Billy. I think you're going to make me earn my dinner tonight. Long question. Let me break it down a little bit. In the initial days, those who adopted cloud early were able to benefit because they were able to enjoy the scalability, they were able to enjoy efficiency, and all the things that we now see are common today of why we're going to go to cloud. And when COVID hit us, and when we saw e-commerce, when we saw home deliveries, when we saw suddenly digitalization Those who are able to go to digitalization quickly were able to benefit. Those companies that are not the traditional were able to switch very quickly. We also saw, unfortunately, a lot of companies that were very traditional based. These people were unable to move fast enough, then got caught. And then, of course, eventually were not able to function very strongly as businesses. So there's always, we could see that move towards digitalization, towards cloud. And we also saw from in-person sales, so instead of selling to somebody in front of you, you suddenly were selling on the internet. Even you speak to your customers, you were speaking to them on some kind of, on your computer, right? Personal experience, of course, is this is the first chance I've been able to get out of Singapore, where I spent my quarantine periods. And it's such a big thing, you know. So I went to Laos, then I went into Thailand, and now I'm in Cambodia. Everyone was so happy that they could get back to business. So a lot of us don't realize that's really big change. But we must realize that digitalization has come already. So there's a lot of benefit to that scale and efficiency. But what does that mean as well? What does digitalization mean? It means that we are going to have to be able to have safe and secure storage of data. That's the key message when we have digitalization. A lot of times, when you have the infrastructure, people start to talk about convenience, but then you lose out on security. So let me give you an example. When you move your business from a storefront, for example, an actual storefront, and then you move into the internet and you put your storefront there, do you have to care about security? Your assets, let's imagine a super duper store, for example. They've got all their assets well displayed in physical. But now if they've moved into the digital world, do they have to have security? Yes, they do. You have millions of assets. You don't want somebody to come in and take them from you. So you have to keep in mind, even when you go to the world of the digital, you have to have the same considerations for security. The other area that I wanted to share about for Pili is you also have to consider that now there are many, many different areas that you have to think about that are different. Yeah, in the past it was you have a storefront, you have a gate, you have a door, you have CCTV. Today, how do you protect your digital storefront? So Pili asked me to try to elaborate this a little bit, because when you see an attack, how someone has been hit, then you realize that they will take advantage just like a normal thief would. You know, so if you imagine someone trying to come into your house, they would find wherever is the most vulnerable. And that's where I wanted to share as well. So in a physical house, if a window was open on the second floor, they'll climb through it. In the same way, in the digital environment, I think Ms. Vorleak spoke on it a little bit earlier. They're going to find the easiest ways to get in. From a vulnerability risk assessment of a business point of view, they're going to see, maybe the employees of the company are not careful. They're going to send a whole spam of emails, phishing, just to see whether one of these employees is going to click the link. All you need is that one person to click that link, and they've started the process of getting in. And eventually they will reach what we call the Easter egg. or the grand jewels of your business, which means someone whose identity is the most important. So that's one thing I want to share. And then, of course, Pili was talking about, the question was also on cyber, right? So on Cambodia building its ecosystem and security, I hope that the architects will also remember that cloud and cybersecurity go together. I think the minister talked about the current cybersecurity laws that are coming in place. Let me also add privacy laws, GDPR. In time, many of you are going to hold customer data, person privacy data. If you don't protect that, that's going to be an issue for the government as well as the people and the customers. So that's going to be key in terms of how you protect this information that you put within a database. Today, our endpoints are many. So holding a phone in my hand, that many years ago was just a phone. Today, your phone is a computer. In the early days, it's today's equivalent, it's a supercomputer. It can do many things. Let me give you an example. Today, many of us would use our mobile device to read a company email, to see a company decision. We would use our phones to access bank accounts. We would use our phones. Sometimes we'd even use social media to make certain important decisions. So if that endpoint was not protected, then you can have millions dedicated to protecting your firewalls. But if you are seeing your information on your phone, it means that someone who hacked your phone or your endpoint has jumped over that security.
And are there specific client examples that you can share of this security incident that have taken place?
Okay. Specifics. A lot of how customers get hacked are really quite private information, so not at privy to share a lot of it, but I can share what are the commonalities. I think Anthony and I have similar research people, so one of the areas I was thinking about was on the colonial example, which was a big one, right? So that was a very big area when it hit very critical infrastructure. One of the things that we found out post that was it was actually a loophole left behind by a legacy system. So let me elaborate a little bit. All the time, companies and because of the fast pace of technology, you are adopting new systems. Someone will come and say, this is the next best thing. You find it, you assess it, you like it, you take it on. But sometimes you don't realize when you take on this new technology, it doesn't gel fully 100% with your old technology. Hence, loopholes can come out. So those are, I guess, some examples of what kind of damage that can happen in terms of legacies. Second thing, of course, is I would like to share is on what's another good example? Okay. So on another good example of an area that you would be vulnerable could be if you have a security in place. Sometimes you are not aware when technology moves and there are new ways of attack. So I was just thinking, and I got stuck on thinking about what the minister was saying about how AI, big data. So we hear a lot of the latest technological solutions. They always tell us we are based on AI, we're based on big data. It's interesting because the minister then very accurately realized the hackers also use AI and big data to attack. So it's a two-way street. Let me share one more bit of information. With that, there are, at last count, an estimate of more than 350,000 malwares or viruses being put on the market every day. So, can your existing protection system react to that? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So next, maybe I ask some question to Kelvin. So, how do we secure our digital future?
Okay, so I think all of you are thought leaders in the room, cybersecurity is a team sport. Number one, we have to acknowledge that right now there is a convergence of IT and OT. Today there's a lot of IT professionals. There is also a lot of industrial hacking incidents that's happened, right? Early part of this year, this week itself, you see continuous news stream of it. How do we secure our digital future? Very simple. Anybody can raise their hands and tell me, you know exactly as of this time now, how many assets you have in your environment in real time, and you have that continuously, visible and monitoring. Do you know that? Because if you're able to share that posture, that itself is a starting point for your asset discovery. A lot of times, the assets, CCTVs, printers, all masquerading, and the malware comes in, right? So I think the first starting point is basics. Fix the basics. The not sexy stuff like asset discovery, monitoring, getting the real-time visibility and monitoring, get that going. That's really something very fundamental. If you have a assume breach plan, assume that your environments have been breached, assume that your crown jewels, what is your incident response plan to that? And then modeling it to the threat vectors. The other part is IT OT. We are moving towards 5G, cloud first, cloud ready. What does that mean actually? A lot of this, as you move to the cloud, it actually gets very difficult to secure. Why? Because during the sprints of DevOps and DevSecOps, a lot of times you cannot catch up. So I would urge, public-private sector capability building, legislative, improvement in terms of the different legislation coming out, right? I think once you have that in place, that would actually drive a lot of the compliance and the accountability, right? I think there's a lot of best practices being shared, used from following NIST standards, i.e. 62443, the different IoT standards, for your different environments. So some of these can be really looked at, because if you look at converged infrastructures, IT, OT, you have your ATM networks, right? And you may think that the ATM networks is actually maybe slightly air gap, but is that really the case, right? How do we know that there's some, even just the ATMs itself, how do the ATMs get maintenance work done? Anybody can share me how do your critical infrastructure such as ATM, medical devices, some of the energy utilities, how do the machines get patch managed, update? In operational technology, these are usually PLCs, RTU, the instrumentation, which are proprietary code, and they are usually autonomous, and in a supposedly air-gap environment, but these are not touched, right? For like 10 years. And for good reason, they are not patched. Because to do patch management takes 1 year of planning, and it's not like IT where you can patch it every week. And now the focus is on the safety and the lives of humans, because critical infrastructure is really crucial. Whereas for IT itself, it's more on the availability of things. I mean, there's a lot to cover there, but essentially converge IT/OT teams. I think as leaders, everybody got to dive deeper. I mean, I've been doing this since 1993. I have taken like 30, 40, 50 certifications. I'm still learning from everyone, still learning, and I think as leaders, we all have to probe and dive deeper, right? Train, ourselves, trains the team, capacity and capability building, right? I think that's really the short gist of it, and in consideration of the pace of convergence of the mobile first and cloud first and 5G, that's going to complicate even more, right? Yeah.
So what are some of the innovative OT threat attack vectors appearing in critical infrastructure environment?
Okay, this is interesting. Anybody use the charging cable that I left earlier on the table? Anybody? If you use the charging cable that I left on the table earlier, jackpot. I have inserted a malware that can get into your phone, right? So what is innovative now is USB. What are the top attack vectors now? Phishing, USB, websites which have drive-by downloads which are compromised. And now these are some of the key ones. But what is very, very interesting is the resurgence, the emergence of USB. Because USB or input devices, such as charging cables, we can actually input the malware into the charging cable. And the moment you charge it, the phone gets charged, but you actually didn't know the malware actually has jump holes into your environment already. So that's something that has made a comeback, especially the early part of this year. So I would say, don't, and I think just be mindful of the different, free dongles, charging cables that's coming as a package to your homes, to your companies, because those are masqueraded as malware devices. Right? And I've personally seen some very innovative ones where they hand out free thumb drives, free charging cables, free fan, and those are malware-laced devices. Right? So can you imagine you bring that to your banks, your air-gap environments, and so some of the new stuff that's come on.
So how do you know that the device or the charging cable or USB is actually Trojan or it's infected? You
wouldn't know because the back end, sort of the bad USB or rubber ducky gets activated, and typically it allows and activates remote access into your environment, right? And that's something very key. It also does a lot of injection of the different scripts in a supposedly air-gap environment. So if you recall, 2010 Stuxnet, they stray the USB with some video that has come back, right? So the playbook is being used again. It's useful. Remember, the adversaries only need to get it right once. They are always learning, and they are just learning and really learning from the domain for the IT, and now they're going to OT, and and it's very, very structured and professional, basically. Yeah.
So how to prevent?
There are different what we call scanning tools that does that. So I think important part of it is what you want to do is to have a program in place, but your attack vector, especially for USBs itself, is really putting up a scanning kiosk. There are different kinds of scanning kiosks out there. So let's say in a critical infrastructure, before a third-party contractor or any vendor who wants to do maintenance, work on your ATMs, CCTV, your printers, just to interget environment, make sure that all devices, including charging cable, are checked. Right, you can check those, and there are certain techniques to do a scanning of some of these devices there. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So,
Thank you.
so anybody got the charging cable and got the malware there?
Okay, so next, maybe I will ask a question to Mr. Khan. So as we know, the volume and complexity of cybersecurity threat keep increasing. Can you share with us where the complexities are typically from and how do you deal with it?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. So as we are digitizing our business and our life faster than ever before, especially COVID-19, we have been adopting Internet of Things, like just now Kelvin mentioned, and then, for example, Internet of Cars and so on. We are practicing mobile working. We are using whatever devices we have to work everywhere. And then we are adopting multi-cloud and multi-SaaS, multi-endpoints. And then all these factors contribute to the complexity of the cybersecurity. And then now we are actually seeing a trend of adopting integrated security center as a concept or as a cloud concept to manage all this complexity as a whole. So it starts with real-time integrates all the vulnerabilities, all the attacks, and the vulnerability assessments data into one place so that we can find the relationship of the vulnerabilities from every single places. And then after that, we leverage big data and AI to do assessment of probably next move of the attackers or the severities of the attacks, and then try to prioritize the attacks or vulnerabilities so that we can choose the most important thing to manage. So those are some of the complexities we see and then some of the industry trend we're observing.
So Alibaba Group being one of the biggest target for hackers, can you share with us some security threat that you faced before and how you overcame the problem?
Right. So as one of the largest e-commerce company in the world, we are facing a lot of challenges. We're probably one of the most popular target of the attackers because we just have a lot of volumes. Last year in the Double 11 Singles Day Shopping Festival, we are experiencing like 500,000 order placement to our systems. And then on that day, we are experiencing hundreds of millions of attacks from all over the world. So that's created a great challenge for us. Some of the example is that, I guess many of you have purchased things online, and then some of you may choose to give a comment. So the unfair comment or unfair complaints can be placed by hackers. And that is one type of attacks. And then some of the sellers, they may place the scam order placement. So that is another thing. And also there are a lot of network attackers try to bring down the applications and the services by putting ingest a lot of traffic into our servers and so on. So all these are actually challenges for us. And then as you know that internet technologies leverage a lot of open source frameworks to develop software. So open source frameworks are maintained by the community. So that is another challenge for us. So actually what we do is that there are several things. The first one is that we hire a lot of engineers to contribute to the cybersecurity community to actively find what are the vulnerabilities of the open source frameworks. So for example, last year, Log4j incidents was firstly identified by Alibaba, and then we have been releasing patches within the 24 hours to let everybody know that this is a vulnerability, and then also put into our the WAF and anti-DDoS protections. Another thing is that we use a knowledge graph to plot all the behaviors of the attackers together so that we can identify what is the typical behavior, what is the typical next move from them, so that we can gain knowledge by collecting all the data and plotting data into something makes sense.
Yeah, I think what you mentioned is about AI, right?
Right.
So do you think artificial intelligence is one of the solutions?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I talk to many of the CISOs, the most thing they like to complain is that I don't have enough resource to manage my cybersecurity. And then the AI is actually one of the interesting things to solve. So, for example, sometimes the security team take a lot of time to prioritize the threats, identify what are the most important things to manage. And then sometimes it takes many efforts to identify the severities of the attack so that they can do the actions to make sure that the consequences is under control. And then sometimes there are many employee behaviors could cause the problem. So in that case, big data and AI can be used to automate a lot of this kind of manual work. And then sometimes big data and AI can be more systematically identify something that the human cannot even identify. So that is one of the technology that we adopt ourselves a lot to minimize the human efforts and then to let it do better than human.
Thank you. So like I asked to other speakers, do you have any advices for us to keep the data safe?
That is a very interesting question. Data security, data access is forever an important topic because it can cause a lot of risk, for example, including reputations, including penalties, including loss of customers, and so on. So at least for ourselves, we manage a lot of data. The internal data management, the rule of thumb is that the data has to reside in the cloud platform. We don't let data to be downloaded from the data management platform. If you want to use it, if you want to perform any analytics, or if you want to use the data, you use that in the platform. So that is the rule of thumb. The second thing is that the encryptions. Encrypt data at rest, encrypt data in transition. That is always the must-have thing. And then think about the key management. Do you manage the key in the cloud? Do you manage the key on premises? Do you manage the key with software or with hardware? I think there are different scenarios you should manage the key in certain ways. Yeah. And then the security problem may come from externally, from attackers, also can be from internal employees. So there are two things can be done from the employees. The first one is a policy, it's a culture that it normally from the top. We ourselves adopt a top-down approach to let the top sponsorship to let everybody know that certain behaviors must be adopted. The second thing is to leverage still the data analytics to understand what kind of employee behaviors could cause what kind of consequences. So those are several things that we are actually adopting ourselves, and then we see there is very good, very effective results from there.
Yes, thank you very much. So next I will be asking some questions to Lieutenant General Chea Peou. So first one would be, can you let us know how your department can work and help the private sector?
Thank you. As you hear, you see on the panel, everyone wear different uniform. But you know, the different one is the police. That's why we are the last one to get the question and then how we perform. As you see that the private sector is very important to work with the government officer. Because of the police, if I'm not wrong, I quote the Prime Minister Samdech Hun Sen mentioned on maybe last week. He mentioned of the Khmer New Year. All the civil servants, all the citizenship, they are off for holiday, but except police are on duty. That's why right now, everyone, they already raised their concern, they are raised and all that kind of stuff. This is the last one, the police have to respond. That's why police is one of the main roles to protect every one of you here to be safe, to feel comfortable, to be trusted with our duty. That's why if we are here, mean that we would like to share how our duty. That's why as the previous speaker, they say that the infrastructure, the cybersecurity, the cloud and all that, everyone now are under a cloud. Everyone can see a cloud, but can you touch a cloud? Yes, we can. But do you feel how the difference between you touch the cloud in different environments? Even we are here, a few of you still using the smartphone. That's why I carry a few of my devices. This is because of the police, not because I come here as the speaker and then I read the information on these kind of devices. That's why to be police have to be understood all kind of the concern of the citizen, the concern of the private sector. So we are the police, we are the law enforcement, we stand for in safely by the agenda of our duty. We stand by day, night, morning, afternoon, lunch. That's why not many women like police, because there's no day off. I remember when I was in state, when the police they kill his wife and go to work, his wife always pray, come back with safety. Because we do not know that the police get out on the field, will be injured, will be shot, will be dead, or whatever. If we return home in the evening, they are delighted. This is the duty of the police. Just share for you just a portion of this duty of the police. Thank you.
So, can you give us some example of a typical type of cybercrime or attack that you see every day?
Right. Because of the law enforcement, I still remember I'm one of the victims of the cyber hacks when I was traveled to state in about 15 years ago or more than 20 years ago. That's why I was assigned to be the director of the anti-cybercrime. When I landed in Los Angeles, then my phone, at that time we just carried maybe the first smartphone, I think like a Nokia and all that, but it also smart, but it is a Symbian. I think every one of you know the Symbian. So when I arrived there and landed, they asked me to upgrade. I did not pay attention, and then actually I want to click on the not upgrade. But because traveling, we carry stuff and all that, so we touch unexpectedly to update. Then the bad guy go to our system, and then they hack my email. That's why at that time I used Yahoo, because Yahoo at that time a bit popular. They hack all my contact, all my information. Since then, I cannot use that kind of the Yahoo. That's why I became the director of the anti-cybercrime, because I used to be a victim. That's why I remember one of the phrases they said that lesson learned. Since that time, every one of you carry many devices. And then when you sell your device or you give a gift to your friend, to your partner, to everyone, you forget to sign it off or to sign it out, all of your media, like Facebook, like Twitter, like Telegram and all that. You forget to sign it out. And so all your data, all your key point, your keyword is still existed. And then you get a new phone. So the new phone could be synchronized easily. But remember, what the gift you give to them. You give to your daughter, you give to your sister, you give to everyone. You do not know who you give to. Sometimes people do not give to anybody, but you place in your car or you place, or sometimes it's gift. You remember your data, your software, and your social media are both working. So whatever you do, they always see. This is the victim, to become a victim easily. And the other one, because now Telegram, it's using cloud. Everyone can sign in many accounts. And then they use many devices. So even for myself, I have one account, one device, but I have 4 Telegram accounts. Also, WhatsApp. Somebody complained, I just one account of WhatsApp, I don't believe. Because some people, they use 2 accounts of WhatsApp. One account is the regular account WhatsApp, another one is a business WhatsApp. Both of them can synchronize with your laptop. As you remember the previous speaker, they mentioned, when you synchronize, you do not know in the between you synchronize. Who can hack you? Who can go through to your key? That's why this is the experience that the police pass by. So finally, even the previous one, they said that whatever they hack, they look for the police. And hack because what? Because of 3 things. The first one, because of the devices. Some people would like to show off. They carry a different device. Like yesterday, I went to the Camp F institution, school. And I asked a lot of students at the audience, how many who carry the open source like Android? No one. Because they know open source is easily, like our college, our speaker from Alibaba mentioned, open source is simple, but easy for hacker as well. That's why not many of the students who have the ability to have the educated, they carry the Android. And then they carry what? iOS, the smartphone. Much better. But the question asked, could be hacked? Of course. Like everyone build a house. Can you look at all the kind of the wall, the door, the window like our previous spoke? No, unless some door is not locked properly. Sometimes you build a luxury house, but you do not buy a luxury key. That's why this is the big question. And this is a big concern. And it is difficult for the law enforcement to investigate. And the other thing, because the education, the user, it comes from the user, not from the device. Some of the users, they do not pay attention on their data. This is one more easy way for the hacker. Thank you.
So if, let's say we get hacked, can we go to the anti-cybercrime police and place a complaint?
Of course, that's why we are here. And we wear a uniform. Because we do not want to introduce every one of you that, oh, if you was hacked or you were hacked or all that, everyone come to my department. We want to say, but we would like to show. Law enforcement, like I mentioned in the previous, you are on holiday, you are on vacation, we are on duty. That's why the anti-cybercrime is the first department who set up the online receiving a complaint because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Not many people can travel, so they can go online. And then they can submit a complaint online. So you can go to our Facebook or our page at the anti-cybercrime department and then see some of the content. You can see some of the video to educate, to tell you how to submit a complaint. We are welcome any of you in here if you will be, or if you could be, or you were a victim, but bring all the evidence. I just share with you this kind. People, they just would like to submit a complaint, but no evidence. Because what? Education. Because what? This is the user. I receive a lot of complaints every day, but some complaints we can investigate. Most of them not. Why? Because no evidence. And some of the users, they do not know how to set up themselves. They ask their friend to set up even a password. They do not remember how the law enforcement can help. So if you complain to the law enforcement, first complain to yourself. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your protection and thank you for making our digital future safe. So next we can take some questions from the audience.
I'm very happy to be here and thank you for protecting us. Thank you for making us feel. And my question is directly to General or Lieutenant. Sorry. So can you tell us a little bit, how do you investigate cybercrime? Is it different from the way that you investigate crime? What are the rules or procedures that you usually follow at your department? And in relation to that, if you want to request some data, for example, in this case, we have one speaker from the bank. If the police request some data from the bank, can you share us what are your rules or what should you do in that case? Do you hand over your client data to police, or there are some procedures that you should do or discuss with the police? Yes. Did you get my questions?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for your question. This is our role, just share with you, to be a law enforcement. First, to investigate the crime. Like you mentioned, a cybercrime. This is a huge. Because you say cybercrime, like you are stay under a cloud. Because cybercrime, you use a lot of different media. Social media. You can use Twitter, you can use WhatsApp, you can use Telegram, so what kind of a cybercrime? So in general, we investigate the cybercrime by the educational officer who educated and with the experiences. Like I mentioned early, we receive a complaint, we need you to bring the device that was hacked to our department. That is the digital evidence. If you do not bring that kind, we cannot help you. Why? Because we cannot go through your device. We do not know how many sessions in your device that you use. Like I mentioned in the early, you have a few devices, could be at home, could be at office, could be in your car, whatever. But you just bring, or you do not bring a device, it's hard for the law enforcement to investigate. The second one, after we check your device, we knew, or we will be known, your device, how it used, how it hacked, why. And then, if we need the data from the private sector, that's why we are here. We work with the private sector, and we are delighted to work with the private sector because to protect you, to protect the business. If we protect the business, means we protect the government. We protect the government, means that we protect our economy. The protect economy of our country, we protect the individual economy. Data is your own property. If you lose the data, means that now you burn your house without attention. So we have to work closely with the private sector because some of the private sector, they signed the MOU with our headquarters. Some of the private sector, they signed a minute with our department, with our headquarters. Some of them, they cooperate because they would like to protect their business. That's why when we request them the data, they will provide us with the law. They will provide us with the policy of each of the institution or the business institution. And finally, when we collect all this, we need a team to analyze. When we analyze the data, we know this is our expert. This is our police job. Even I share with you, but sometimes it's hard to understand because you are not educated to be a police. If you were educated to be a police, you will not wear that kind. You have to wear the uniform like us. Thank you.
Do we have another question?
I have 3 questions. One to Vorleak. Since you talking about the awareness, I realize that most organizations will have user awareness to all the organization user. However, since your institute also provide a service to all individual customer, we can say low education or high education, you provide service to them. In terms of this, have you ever provided user awareness to your customer? And thank you. I go to another question. To Mr. Khan. Yes, I know Alibaba is very good target for all the hacker, whether for all type of hacker. And here you talking about your security, especially your AI. And we realize that, I don't know for me, but maybe other also face this challenge. Our security unit need a security force, and also depending on the human resource. And we realize that we also high demand in this. So sometimes regarding to this, we are afraid that without enough resources, it will impact to the organization. So when you talk about AI, and here we talk about the secure our digital future. So do you think in the future, all the AI will be able to handle everything? I know that the principle is something like prevention control, and then you have detection control, and then responsive control. So all of this is AI able to work instead of human. Yes, and the last to Mr. General. Yes, regarding to the device, electronic device, you can see we have a smart device, we have IP camera, everything, or Internet of Things. So if you're talking about the product regarding to the health, you need to get authorized from the Ministry of Health or any regulator. But in terms of electronic device like this, if the manufacturer, they embed a chip that like a Trojan horse of a software. So how can we know that the device has their chip inside and it will send all our information like IP camera. We are using the IP camera. How do we know we are secure? Whether this camera keeps sending my information or picture that is recording to those manufacturers. Is that we have any control before distribution in the market? Do we have any security check before I load them?
So let me answer the first question. Whether ACLEDA has provide awareness to customer or not. Of course, we have, because since even though ACLEDA never got hacked from the outsider, but our customer also meet the phishing attack from the outsider, which it is outside the system of the bank. So we provide the security tip to our customer. Even on the mobile application, ACLEDA Mobile, we provide a tip so that what customers should do and what customers should not do. On our public website, we also post the awareness related to phishing, wishing, and smishing, so that the customer know that what kind of information and what kind of contact that the bank contact to. The bank have only one domain, for example, acledabank.com.ka. So beside this, please do not answer or please do not provide your information. And something like the bank never asks you for personal information. So this kind of thing that we have provide to our customer to make them aware and then to protect themselves. Thank you.
So, Ken?
Sure. When we talk about AI in cybersecurity, it will help a lot when we are lacking of resources, but it will not be the only thing that take care of everything. So we all know that AI is something that the machine will learn things from the past, whatever happens from the past. So for example, certain attacks cause certain consequences, and then what is the consequences? Is that severe or not? And then how should we treat it as the priority 1 or priority 2? So all these things happen in the past, we can let AI to learn from it. So that if this kind of thing happens again, then AI could be the one that take care of it. But however, when we talk about attackers, they are probably one of the most innovative or smartest people in the world. So I don't think that at this stage, I don't think that the AI is powerful enough to deal with all these smart people because they are people. So then the value of AI is to let the people work on the security to deal with the smart attackers for their new ideas, but let AI to take care of what has happened and then prevent what has happened before.
So third question, General.
Thank you. I will respond to the last question regarding on the devices, so with the name or with the brand. That your question is concerned, it's good. Your question is you research on the market, but you remember, because the standard of the living in Cambodia is one of the poor country. That's why EU issues the policy, the regulation, in order like the medicine and all kind that. So the people cannot won't afford to get all kind of devices. That's why we divide it in different category. If you are not much of your standard of living, you can buy a product with just a name and popularity. For example, you would like to buy a charger. You can buy a charger from China. You can go to Alibaba. You can choose all kind of the option of the price. And you buy it because you buy from the brand website like Alibaba. But if you see that Alibaba.j, for example, or .c, it's not Alibaba. And if you buy from that is a fake product. So you will become the victim easily. The first one. Why? Because this is the standard of living. Secondly, if you are the middle class, you look for the good or the better product. You can buy, like I mentioned, yesterday I went to the Camet. Not any of the students who use the Android, because they do not trust the Android. Even Samsung, cheaper than an iPhone. But the security, because they are educated, they are wealthy. Their family can support. Their family can afford, and each of them can afford. So you buy the better product. You look at the brand. Marketing is so important. That's why now the law enforcement need a marketing as well. So we can support with the private sector that we can tell. When you go to the shop, they ask you how much you want to buy a computer. They say that I want to buy a cheap computer, but the cheap computer, there's no software, there's no window. You buy it, and you can download the window or you crack the window, so you will become the victim easily. And it is at the gate, it is the door that you open for the bad guy. And if you have a high standard living, you can use, like you see, every product that you can buy the luxury product with the name. So the bottom line, in order to avoid this, you have to buy the item with the brand name. Don't buy a product without a brand name. If you buy a product with the brand name, even the second use or the brand new with the brand name, it's more secure. This is what I want to share with you. That's all. Thank you.
Is there any panel speaker who has something to add?
Regards to CCTVs, there are 350 to 400 there. So what you want to do is to get network access control going, because regardless of whether is it a branded CCTV, web camera, any of these devices, or non-branded, a network access control policy will be able to see if that particular IP is masqueraded or not, if that particular firmware has changed. So that's why it's very important to get asset discovery, because you want to know at this point in time, firmware, the actual IP, the versioning, the config changes are all in line for whether is it a branded or non-branded IP. What you can also do as a second practical step is check Shodan.io, and you can look at your organization if there is a accessible IP that's into your organization itself. So these are some of the things. And then the third one, I think, is there's eBOM and there's software that is available. I think quite a fair bit there that can be seen. Yeah.
One of the things, I guess another dimension I see in cybersecurity is the cyber arms race, where you have companies like the NSO Group that are developing packages that their governments or wealthy individuals can buy. So how do you see that as another threat that organizations have to think about? Thank you.
As I shared earlier, whatever you can see on your mobile device, they could see. So essentially, if you saw an email, they saw the same email. If you sent a WhatsApp message to somebody, they saw you send that WhatsApp message to somebody. The other issue is they broke your decryption. So most apps have decryption from source to source. The problem with this is when they broke it at the mobile device itself, then that was a way for them to get in. So it's difficult, and that has to be said at the start. Why? Because you can have the best security measures, but many of these security measures cannot allow, I think as the General has said, if you open the door yourself, someone will come in. Now, I give the example of a bank app. You now have, all of you probably have your mobile devices with you. If you imagine someone has hacked your mobile device, they look, once I hack your mobile device, I know your user ID, number one. I know your password, number two. I'm controlling, and I think the term is called root access to your mobile device. So let's say I access ACLEDA's bank app. I'm a customer of ACLEDA. The system is strong, but when I access it, I key in as a customer, while I'm the hacker, yeah? I key in as a customer the user ID. Second, I key in the user password. Most people will say, hang on, but the security is actually really good. So what's the next level? There's an OTP, yes? But again, I am controlling your mobile device. What does that mean? That means that when the OTP comes, the hacker will get it. Now, again, you'll say, hey, maybe I'm awake. So again, if I'm the hacker controlling a device, it means I can also control your microphone, I control your video, I can literally see whether you're awake or not. Which means I would probably, if I were the hacker, I would pick when you are sleeping to send that access towards the bank. The bank system is secure, by the way, it's secure. But now the systems are thinking, it is a bank customer, legitimate. So that's how the hack's going to take place. If I may share a little bit then about what then can we do. So late last year in Singapore, we came across where we had this exact. The bank, of course, in that instance, took a nice step and tried to reimburse everybody. But the problem was still, you still had to try to stop. And that's where I want to share. As an organization, a big problem for many is, what's your incident response? The police requires you to bring evidence to them. Today, I think looking across many of you, you would not, do you have, when you go back, please ask the question, what happens when a hack takes place? Do you have people who have the knowledge, firstly, to recognize that a hack has happened? Frequently, a lot of the experience that we see, a hacker would have gotten into your organization, sat there for about 6 to 9 months before they acted. When they acted, they exploited and pulled either customer data or money or put in a ransom attack on you. So 2 parts. One is, if it's a hack and you manage to catch it live, perfect. It means you have people who are trained, have the capability. So go back and ask, do you have people who know what to do? So again, wearing a person with a day-to-day responsibility, many of you, including as managing director of a business. Your worst nightmare, I can imagine, would be your CTO, your CISO, or even head of IT calling you in the middle of the night and saying, boss, we just got hacked. Our database is now being held at ransom, and they're asking us for a big sum of money. What to do? So that's going to be a very big chunk that's going to be laid on you. So question when you go back is the advice. Do you have the people first who are able to react? Second, do you have a plan, a response when such a thing happens? So I would recommend, firstly, as a start, do a health check. So one of the things you can do, just like a normal person trying to check the status of your own health, check the status of your organization's health. We recommend you do something like that at least once a year, so that you would be able to know how to react should something like this happen. Second, when such a thing happens, make sure you have the people who have that knowledge, what to do when an incident happens. So in a little bit of technical jargon, do a vulnerability assessment, do a penetration testing at least once a year. Know where the health of your organization is. Second, when you do that, at least you know where you are. The day you get a health check and you receive it, frequently it's, phew, I'm okay. So at least from that time, you have something. If there are, of course, loopholes that are identified, then remediate, right? patch all these loopholes that you find. So frequently, that's something that people miss often. You don't either do the health check or you don't remediate properly, hence legacy issues. And then finally, build expertise in incident response. Why? Because when you get hacked, you got a couple options. So let me share one anecdote. My head of my red team always tells me, when I pose the question, what would most of you do? Would you pay the ransom? Anyone? All your data, you're not going to be able to do work tomorrow or the next day or for the foreseeable. Some people, of course, have chosen to pay the ransom. The advice, of course, from us is don't pay the ransom. And, of course, we hope that you have, of course, done data backup, data redundancy, which my esteemed colleague there would tell you. That's what the cloud is for. And why not pay? Because your name immediately rises to the top of the dark web as the best paymaster. And every hacker out there is going to come at you. Yeah? So, little bit of thing, don't pay the ransom. And of course, finally, if you can react to the incident, then you can work with government because you have people who know how to preserve, first. Second, stop whatever attacks are happening. And thirdly, recover forensic evidence that can be given to law enforcement to help you to mitigate. And of course, if maybe money has been taken away, they will try to help you recover it. I hope that helps.
If you look, an average organization would have 35 to 50 product vendors there. And I think key is to quickly get the orchestration. So once you get your asset discovery, automation is key to solving this problem. Because at today, we have almost 3.5 million cybersecurity professionals shortage globally. And with the rise of the polymorphic threats, automation is the only way. So to get to that level, with no resources, no budget, what do? You got to do the hard yards to get the baseline asset, get the orchestration and the automation of your 35 to 50 solutions out in your environment. But crucial, what's happening now is quantum. Okay, so I think to the question of surveillance and some of the very innovative attacks, quantum will be key because the next wave of that is you can send the cryptographic keys to space, right? So I think having to understand AI, quantum, and I think a lot of organizations have started that through the use of cloud systems that you have or that you're engaging with the different partners is also a good starting point there. Yeah. So it's also part of the training. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. I think we have one last question from Matthew.
Yeah, it's a quick question. I just want to ask about passwords. I mean, we all have dozens of accounts, right? Be email accounts or apps or, bank accounts, whatever, subscriptions. And so we have to keep track of all these passwords. So I just wanted, just conventional wisdom-wise, sort of how because if passwords are complex, they're hard to remember, where do we store them? What's the best advice on that? I mean, my password is like, my wife's first name, her year of birth and the hash symbol, combinations of that. So if you want to get into my ACLEDA account, you know who my wife is, you're halfway there, But just generally, I mean, it's a real, we all have this issue as individuals. So what's sort of the conventional wisdom from the experts on the best way to deal with passwords? How complex should they be? Where do we store them? How often should we change them? Those sort of issues.
Well, let's start with really high end, okay? Just a normal person, but I'll go high and then come low. From the very high, think about your IT and admin people. How many different devices, systems, solutions, different software, hardware that have different passwords that require of them? I think the average count for a bank probably 300, 400 different. So someone going in, I can describe, someone going in would have to access the system would recognize who this person is that is trying to access the system to get rights and access credentials for them. And then once it clears, then it's like an OTP system for one person. Before you access your system, you go in. So at the very high end, that helps them minimize the number of passwords they have to remember. And at the same time, it recognizes. So again, automation. Right down to the lowest one, then individual. All of us, as you say correctly, will struggle with that. My answer is, sir, this is an issue of security versus convenience. Yeah? All of us, I think Ms. Vorleak spoke earlier, we must put it into our heads. We need to keep changing our passwords. There's no other way. You know, every week, every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, change your password. Don't write it down somewhere. Don't use your passwords. Don't use QWERTY123. Religiously make it a point. I think also a lot of systems now have auto-generate. So start with securing your system, then make it a discipline to religiously adhere to cybersecurity, because convenience is one thing, but the moment you have been hacked, then you will find it totally inconvenient. I hope that helps.
Yeah, so that's the end. And on behalf of AmCham, I would like to thank all the international and local speakers of the panel. And I thank all the audience for being here. Thank you.
Again, while they're setting up, I do want to thank our sponsors again. Byplan Global, thank you. Cambodia Investment Management, Hiep Group, and E&J Gallo Winery. Thank you very much for tonight's support. So the first certificate I want to present is from His Excellency Pili Wong to Police Lieutenant General Chea Peou. Mr. Anthony Galliano will present to His Excellency Ainsly Jong. Ms. Kim Tol Ten will present to Mr. Kelvin Chin. Mr. Jigar Achabarov will give to Mr. Kan Yang. And Mr. Joseph Telfer will give to Ms. Vorleak Chhim. Okay, thank you very much.